Hello there! Today I will show you how to get started with your one-point perspective city drawing. The first step, as you can see here, is you need to lightly draw a horizon line and mark the vanishing point. Always use your ruler at this point when you are drawing straight lines so they look straight. What is the horizon line? If we are drawing a landscape, the horizon line is the separation of the sky and the land. So you need to decide where you want your horizon line to be. It can either be up higher or down lower. I would have it somewhere near the middle of your paper. If it's down lower, you'll have more of the sky. That gives the effect that maybe you're in a helicopter or in a hot air balloon flying over something because you see a lot of the sky and not as much of the ground. If you have it up, the horizon line up very high, that gives the impression that you are lower on the ground because you see a lot of the ground before you. I would suggest putting it near the top third of your paper because our focus is drawing buildings. So you need to make sure you have enough room to include the buildings. So I will make sure this matches the top of my paper. It's parallel. I could measure down like you did for your last drawing, maybe 4 inches, we'll say. On this side, 4 inches down from the top, and then connect your line. You'll want to draw lightly. I am drawing a little bit darker so that you can see what I'm drawing more clearly. The next step is step number 2. Draw a triangle from the bottom of the paper to the vanishing point. What do you think this triangle is going to represent? It will represent the road. So from our vanishing point in the center of our paper, on the horizon line, you will draw a triangle going down. Now, if you want to get really specific, you can draw from the bottom of your paper. You can draw, depending on how wide you want it, you could say I want to draw the line 3 inches from this side, 3 inches from this side, and you can decide that way so it's even with the bottom of your paper. I'm going to slide this up. So on the bottom of my paper, I'm going to mark, let's say, 3 inches from this side, maybe 2.5 inches from this side, and 3 inches from this side. We'll do 3 inches as well. So there is my inches that way. And then I'm going to take that line down there, the mark, and draw to the vanishing point at the top. So now I have my road that goes from the center of my paper down. Now you can see this line is a little bit over and this line is a little bit over. It's not quite center. So you can remeasure those lines until you get it how you want it to look. I'm going to focus only on what's on the bottom of my paper right now. So I'm going to fold this so you can see a little bit better what I'm doing. Once I have my road drawn, don't be tempted to draw the lines in the road. I will show you how to draw the lines in the road. Your job right now is to start drawing the buildings. So we'll leave the road how it is for now. Step 3, use a ruler to draw rectangles and squares on or below the horizon line. Now, why are the buildings below the horizon line or on the horizon line? Well, if they are on the ground, which most buildings are built on the ground, they would have to be somewhere on this ground area. If the building's really tall, it might go into the sky if you're looking up at it, but make sure they're all down here. Now, if something is lower on the paper, it would be closer to you. So it could be bigger, and then the buildings that are further away, they get closer to this vanishing point. Everything gets smaller as it goes up on the paper towards the vanishing point. So the buildings up higher would be smaller. I'm going to work on drawing my rectangles. Your goal is to draw 5 to 9 rectangles. If you want a very busy city, you should have more buildings. And you should put some thought into the shapes you want, what type of buildings you want to work with the theme of your city. I'm going to just quickly draw some buildings. I'll have a smaller one out here, but take your time to make sure they are parallel and they are perfect rectangles. Remember, the ones up higher, closer to your vanishing point, are smaller. And you can have your buildings overlapping as well. So there's one shape, and I wouldn't see the line, the horizon line past the shape, so I can erase that as I go. Let's do another one over here. I'm going to make sure I make it a little bit bigger visually so that it looks like it's getting closer. Like I said, you can stick with just basic shapes, or you can get creative with different types of shapes. I am going to have this one here. And maybe put a triangle on this one. This one's going to get taller and bigger. And you can have it go off the paper if you want. I might do that. Have it go off the paper. And on this side, I'm going to draw my building here, big. I draw both of the sides first, or the top and bottom first. That way I can just slide my ruler up and make it parallel. We'll do one more here, a little bit smaller. You don't want any crooked buildings, so if you draw a line crooked, make sure you correct it. And I'm going to put a triangle roof on this one. Because this one is bigger, it's lower on the paper, it's closer to the viewer. We're standing out here looking into the picture. So it would be in front of my other building that's behind it, that's further away. So I'm going to just make believe where the end of my building is, and it's going to go off the paper. So here's my triangle, and I erase what would be behind it. Draw your shapes, and then you can move on to step number 4, or draw a few shapes and then work on step number 4 and 5 with them. You can always add more buildings later. Step number 4 is drawing lines from the corners of the shapes or buildings to the vanishing point. This is just like when we drew our shapes in the initial video for 1-point perspective, where you had your shape drawing. Very similar. You will work from the corners, and we don't have see-through buildings, so it's the same concept. With this building, I would only see the right and the left, the front and the left side. I'm going to draw my line all the way to my vanishing point. If you know you don't want your building to be forever and ever and ever, you don't have to draw it all the way, but make sure your ruler matches your vanishing point and the corner of the building. And I should draw all the way just so that you can see how that looks. It gets complicated, but when we move on to step 5 and 6, it becomes a little bit easier to see. So it might be easier for you to work on the steps all at once, because you'll have to decide what lines you need and what lines you don't need. So here I have 2 buildings, corners go to the vanishing point. If the line goes and cuts through the shape, I don't draw it. So right now I have some lines going through my shapes. And that's a problem because we can't have see-through buildings. So what lines would I erase in this section? Depending on how long my building is here, I would erase the edges of the building that would be behind it because it's up higher on the paper. So this building's in front, it's lower. This building is further away, so it's up higher. So keep that in mind as you are drawing your buildings. Step number 5 says to shorten the buildings by drawing parallel lines that match the front of the building, the side facing you. Just like when we cut our shapes in the first video, if there's a line here that's vertical, you draw a vertical line to match it. If there's a horizontal line, the top of the building, draw a horizontal line to match it between those two orthogonals, the lines that go to the vanishing point. So here I just have one line, it's vertical. So I'm going to draw that, and I can erase my extra lines. So here is one building that is done. The next step is for this building, maybe I want it overlapping. So I'm going to draw my horizontal line going across and then going down. Now I can erase my extra lines here. So now I have one building that's closer, one building that's further away. They're both shortened, so they don't go on forever. Most buildings don't. So I want you to work on drawing your buildings and then shortening them.